Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by my good friend and esteemed colleague, Jeff Howe, for Football Theory. Football Theory, as always, brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura Baker, we really appreciate her. As a matter of fact, I met Laura Baker at one of our events, our Texas tour events with our friends over at Third and Longhorn. It was a pleasure to meet her. She is fantastic, and she can be trusted with all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. So Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams. They can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So please give her a shout today at 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. And speaking of Laura Baker, this weekend on Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m., she'll be having an open house for 7018 Avignon Drive. That's Avignon Drive. It's a great, beautiful home. List price is $879,000. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. Open house is Saturday, and that's 7018 Avignon Drive. And you can reach out at laura@andyallenteam.com, or you can reach out at 512-784-0505. All right. Thank you very much to Laura Baker. We really appreciate her ongoing support of On Texas Football. All right, Jeff. When I asked you about the topics for today's program, you wanted to start digging into this Texas-Ohio State matchup. And honestly, I'm right with you, brother. So I'll throw it to you because I love this topic you're talking about. I mean, this is the topic du jour of this fantastic powerhouse matchup between Texas and Ohio State.
Yeah, normally now our pre-show meetings for Football Theory are a little more intricate than our pre-show meetings for Longhorn Blitz back in the day. And normally Rod and I will bounce topics off each other. But this one was like, what do you want to talk about? I came prepared this week because one catch for 3 yards, Rod. Jeremiah Smith, you, me, and producer Matthew almost combined for as much production as Jeremiah Smith had in the passing game in the Cotton Bowl. I'm not expecting that to be his final stat line in Columbus on August 30th. I think he's been waiting for this all offseason, even though he's coming off a national championship. He wants to show that he was better than one catch for 3 yards. When you start digging into his numbers for his phenomenal freshman year, now think about all the great wide receivers Ohio State's had over the years. Chris Carter still had all the single-season freshman receiving records for that program. Stood for 40 years. Jeremiah Smith obliterated those numbers last year. So the most prolific true freshman receiver in the history of that program is Jeremiah Smith, which is saying a lot. When you start breaking it down, Rod, and you say, okay, how are you going to deal with him? Because with Julian Sand being a first-time starting quarterback, you know they're going to try to funnel production to Jeremiah Smith. What you want to try to avoid are situations where he is in man coverage. Last year, according to Pro Football Focus, his grade of 90.6 against man coverage, that was second in the FBS among wide receivers with a minimum of 13 targets in man coverage. Only Trey Harris at Ole Miss was better. Jeremiah Smith against man, Rod, 25 catches, 384 yards, and 4 touchdowns on 32 targets. His NFL passer rating when targeted in man coverage, 156.3. That's a near perfect NFL passer rating. Average 4.09 yards per route run. That was 6th in the FBS against man coverage, and average depth of target of 11.1 yards. So basically, whenever Will Howard saw Jeremiah Smith was in man coverage, they're sending him down the field. They're not throwing him 5-yard hitch routes. They want him. It's that bang 8. It's the corner. It's the go. They want him. They wanted him getting vertical. What was even more dangerous about Jeremiah Smith was how proficient he was on the deep ball. Passes that traveled more than 20 yards down the field last season, he caught 12 of those passes, 467 yards and 4 touchdowns. His PFF grade right on deep balls, 99.9. He was essentially perfect in the deep game. So you want to play him deep, keep everything in front of you, and try not to single him up. Now, you go back a couple of weeks ago, what Sark said about challenging Manny Muhammad going into the second scrimmage. Said they threw a lot at him, and it was intentional, getting him ready for this, for what he's going to face. I mean, you're facing one of the most physically gifted wide receivers we've seen in college football in a very, very long time. I would never put a true sophomore in a category of Randy Moss. Jeremiah Smith may be the closest thing we've seen to that when you look at the size, speed, everything. So, Rod, I ask you now, his numbers in zone were good, but nothing compared to man coverage. So, Rod, you why don't you sit in Coach Akina's chair as the defensive pass game coordinator? How are you defending Jeremiah Smith in this game?
Yeah, man, those are some great numbers too. Great breakdown there, Jeff. I think I start with the deep threat. That's just mind blowing. 99.9 pro football focus grade on deep passes. I'd keep something over the top of them. Whether that's the corner that's I'm told to be over the top, and I'll have a defender underneath, a shading to that side, or if I just got to keep an umbrella over the top of him, and that's the adjustment that we make in the secondary with the safety. But I need a guy over the top of him. I cannot allow him in a deep situation one-on-one with. And I'll say I love Malik Muhammad. Malik Muhammad's great, and I think you have the best opportunity to defend a deep pass with Malik Muhammad against Jeremiah Smith. But I still don't like the odds, and I want to put my players in the best position to be successful. And I think you go with a lot of the game plan you had last year. You have a safety over the top. I think you shade coverage, you roll coverage to Jeremiah Smith. You've got to do your best to take him away, even pre-snap from the quarterback. You just talked about it. A lot of what Will Howard did last year, veteran quarterback, he could decide or at least be able to decipher, are they in man coverage pre-snap? I think a lot of the disguise is going to be big in this game. You got a young quarterback, first-time starter in Julian Sand. I think if you are Texas, a lot of what you show pre-snap should be trying to take away Jeremiah Smith or trying to confuse the quarterback. Maybe you want to bait them into thinking he is in man coverage when he's not in man coverage. I think the number one rule will be if he's in man, he's double covered. He's bracketed. There may be an adjustment too where they shift maybe shift a split field coverage when he's in there. Like say if Jeremiah Smith is on the single receiver side, then we're playing half over there. We're playing halves. We're going to play a corner who's going to play cover two, and we're going to have a safety over the top of them. But that cover two will be more like a two-man, like two-man. So we're basically playing a man underneath, and we'll play quarters on the other side. So you can go quarters, half. You're going to have to change it up because you can't allow Hartline, you can't allow Julian Sand, you can't allow Jeremiah Smith to figure out exactly how you're going to attack them down and down. So you need probably 3 or 4 different ways you're going to adjust coverage to Jeremiah Smith, but also be able to effectively take him away. And I think that's going to be a big part of the game. He's going to have gravity, guys. He's going to attract defenders to him. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, what do you do if you're Texas? Because you're basically going to be outnumbered a lot of the time, different areas of the defense now. You're probably going to be playing with a light box because you're going to have a safety over the top of him or a defender shading coverage or rolling coverage to Jeremiah Smith. So how do you stop the run with the light box? And how does everybody else feel about defending in one-on-one situations? Because they'll probably be left to their own devices a lot of the time.
That was going to be my next question. You kind of just answered it, Rod. So Dwayne Akina is coming in at a time when Texas is making this transition. You lose Jahdae Barron, you lose Andrew Makuba. We know communication's been a really big piece of this. My question is, and if Texas answers this question successfully, I think there's a really good chance they win the game. How comfortable do Dwayne Akina, Mark Orfe, Kenoto Hudson, along with, we know Johnny Nanson's got a big say in the passing game, and then ultimately it falls on PK as the defensive coordinator. How comfortable do those guys feel about, okay, we can run X percentage of split coverages. We need to be X percentage of quarters. We need to be in a cover one to make sure we've got an extra defender in the box. How comfortable do they feel with the communication to trust Michael Taff and Jelani McDonald and the guys that are in the communication center to make the right checks, handle the coverages? In other words, how diverse can they be in a season opener?
That is good. I think they can be pretty diverse because you got Taff, who can be the air traffic controller back there. You got a veteran corner in Muhammad. I believe Gilbo's probably going to be, out that corner too, at that other corner spot. That's another veteran in that secondary. Whether you're talking about Jelani McDonald or Derek Williams, both of those guys, experienced guys. So I think they should lean on that experience, and I think they should go heavy disguise pre and post snap. Confuse the hell out of Julian Sane, and you want to confuse the guys upstairs so they don't know necessarily what's coming pre and post snap. You're not necessarily giving away any of your defensive tendencies based on how you're lining up pre and post snap. You got enough and you got enough versatility to cause ID issues for every quarterback, but especially a first-time starter like Julian Sand. So if I'm Texas, I wouldn't hold back. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about it's the first game, and it's hard to implement a lot of exotics in the first game. I told you, especially against, in a caliber opponent like Ohio State, defending champions on the road. If I'm Texas, I take that chance on defense. I think it's worth it against Jeremiah Smith. I think he's that good. You start with the defensive game plan you had last year, but you don't know if it's going to necessarily work because you don't know exactly how they're going to attack the Texas defense. That's another question altogether, how they're going to attack them. But we know they're going to try to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, to your point.
And with Ohio State, we know they got a retooled offensive line. They've got experience. It's just that experience has been in maybe different spots than it's going to be on the 30th. And you lose a lot losing Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, breaking in 2 new running backs. So how much do Brian Hartline and Ryan Day trust their run game right now? We'll see that. But I started thinking about it, Rod. So, okay, you take Jeremiah Smith out of it. And I think for Ohio State, you want to make sure, I don't know if you treat Ryan Wingo necessarily like that. That's no disrespect to Wingo. But, okay, do you prioritize Ryan Wingo in coverage and see if, hey, can a DeAndre Moore beat you or a Parker Livingstone? And I started thinking about, okay, for 2 quarterbacks, Arch making his first start on the road, Julian Sam making his first start, period. What is a quarterback's best friend? That tight end, that security blanket. And when I started thinking about that I started thinking about secondary targets, because if you go back to the Cotton Bowl, yeah, Texas shut down Jeremiah Smith. But I don't want to say that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day were content to let that happen, but it's a lot easier to swallow that. It's a lot more palatable when you've got a first-round wide receiver and Emeka Egbuka as your number 2 option. And he was huge in that game. It seemed like every time they needed a big conversion or they needed to move the sticks, get themselves into a manageable 3rd down, or move the chains, it was Will Howard looking for Emeka Egbuka, and time after time he came through. And I started thinking about, okay, who's going to be that secondary target for Ohio State? And I've been thinking about, is Carnell Tate ready to step up? Is it going to be Brandon Ennis? It's probably going to be Max Clare, the transfer tight end from Purdue who Texas looked at. And you look at where he was really good last year, Rod, in the intermediate game. According to PFF, passes that traveled 10 to 19 yards down the field. Max Clare last season targeted 17 times, 13 catches, 226 yards, and a touchdown, a 99.4 PFF grade. So right in that range where a quarterback's going to look for a tight end to be his security blanket, that's where Max Clare was so huge. On the flip side, the one thing I've questioned with Arch, and I don't question much with Arch Manning, how proficient is he going to be in the short game and the quick game? Because that was an area where Quinn really excelled. We know the deep game is going to be there. Start looking at where Jack Indries was really productive. Go look at the short passing game with Jack Indries. Passes from the line of scrimmage up to 9 yards down the field, 43 targets, 40 receptions, 396 yards, and 98.4 PFF grade. So I think with the receivers for Texas, it's going to be more vertical stuff. I think your short game is probably going to be the running backs and Jack Indries. And I think for Ohio State, the guy that you're going to look to on those 2nd and medium situations or those 3rd and medium situations, if it's Jeremiah Smith, it may not necessarily be Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis. It's probably going to be Max Clare. So the tight ends in this game are going to be massive for both sides.
That's a great point, Jeff, you bring it up, because I think ultimately both defenses will try to put an umbrella, right? They'll try to keep a top on the defense to force the offense to take the underneath throws. And if I'm Texas or if I'm Ohio State, I want my inexperienced quarterbacks to get confidence, to get into rhythm, and you can do that with the short, quick passing game. So I think that short, quick passing game, unless Texas decides to be really aggressive early on and say, no, we're gonna shrink these passing windows for a young quarterback and force him to make throws in really tight spots, I imagine there'll be some underneath throws there open early on for Texas and for Ohio State. And actually, to your point, I wrote it down here. I said I think Texas is going to be a more 12 personnel. Ohio State will be in more 12 personnel. I think they may surprise Texas, get Texas in base personnel, all right, in 40 personnel out there, and force Texas to see if Texas can really match up against their tight end. I mean, you're going to put a linebacker on them, you're going to put a safety on them, and see if they can get engineer some one-on-one matchups on the outside with their receivers. Because think about it, you go 40 personnel, and you're still trying to double Jeremiah Smith. Oh man, then you got 2 defensive backs on the field, and you've already decided to allocate 2 of those 4 to Jeremiah Smith. Well, you only got 2 left, and you got another receiver out there, and that means you only got 1 DB left. All right, to cover that tight end. You could do that, but essentially that's going to leave somebody in a vulnerable situation, and I think that's what they're going to try to do a little bit more, and it'll help them in the run game. You get more bodies and more gaps in the run game out of 12 personnel. I think that'll help. And I think for them, they may decide it'll help in pass protection too. Get a little bit more match protect. Now, I know it may simplify things for a young quarterback. Yeah, but Jeremiah Smith ends up doubled, and I got 2 other guys on routes where it's pretty simple. Those guys are going to end up in one-on-one situations, and we can take advantage of that. So I agree with you about the tight end. I think tight end is going to be key in this game because they're going to be hunting matchups. And that may be one of the best ways to get a matchup advantage. Think about the game last year. When did Texas find their biggest matchup advantage? Jaden Blue on a linebacker. That was the one they found, and they hit it. Boom, boom, 2 times for touchdowns. I wouldn't doubt in this game you can see that, but from your perspective, like from the tight end position.
Last thing I'll say, the rapport between Arch and Ryan Wingo. I just mentioned Ryan Wingo, and to your point, if I'm Ohio State, I can't let Ryan Wingo beat me deep. We know Texas is going to try to push the ball vertical down the field with Arch Manning. You start looking at Ryan Wingo's numbers last year, Rod, 14 targets on deep balls. That's 20 yards or more down the field. Only had 4 catches, but those 4 catches went for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. So when it was on target and in his area, he caught it and made something happen. So if I'm Ohio State, I can't have Ryan Wingo beat me deep. How accelerated is Ryan Wingo's game? Because you start looking at, really the screen game up to 9 yards, the screen game and the short game. So anything behind the line of scrimmage and up to 9 yards, according to PFF, Ryan Wingo last year, 24 targets, 19 catches, 201 yards. So he was good, but there's going to be a lot more asked of him this year. It's not really – there really hasn't been an intermediate game with Ryan Wingo. At least we didn't see it last year. You're either throwing him a screen where he can operate in space and use his athleticism and his playmaking ability, or you're sending him deep. I'm fascinated to see, and this is going to be a really good baseline of how much does Ryan Wingo's game grow as a sophomore. He's going to develop the intermediate game at some point. Do we start to see it against Ohio State?
To your point about Ohio State and that chess match, I do wonder, how they're going to utilize Caleb Downs in trying to take away weapons like Ryan Wingo. There's some talk that he's working nickel, safety, like they're going to move him all around the place. So you got to identify where that guy is pre-snap. That's going to be Arch's kind of first responsibility. Where is that guy? Because I think a lot of that will determine what their defensive emphasis is going to be. But I agree about Ryan Wingo. I think in this game, I don't know if they think of him, and this may be disrespectful, as a type of threat that we have to eliminate. Right? Is he the type of threat you have to eliminate? Do you have to allocate resources to eliminate him? Do you believe – we know Jeremiah Smith is that. You better allocate resources to stop him, or he will implode your entire game plan. Ryan Wingo has that ability. Does Ohio State respect him that much? Because if they don't, I'm with you. I'm sorry. I go to Ryan Wingo early if they're not showing him that kind of respect. Same thing you did with Gunnar Helm last year versus Michigan with Colston Loveland when he came in with all the hype as the top tight end. And then, you know what? We're going to show off Gunnar Helm here today. I think you can do that with Ryan Wingo in this matchup if they're not showing him the proper respect. And I think one way they might go at it, Jeff, and, I just feel like with, the evolution of this offense with Arch Manning, I feel like the first big shot might be traditional old school play action, either from a pistol or under center where he turns his back.
Yeah.
And then because nobody's used to seeing that in college. You still see it a lot in college. Under center or pistol old school play action. I think you may get that in a deep shot to a Ryan Wingo if they think about leaving him one-on-one. And right now, like I said, I would respect him and double him, and I would try to take him away. But I'm not sure Ohio State respects him to that extent.
I just say this: if you don't, it's gonna be like that Kevin Hart special back in the day. You don't respect him, you gonna learn today. You're gonna learn today.
I agree with you, brother. I'm with you 100%. All right, good stuff, Jeff, as always. Let's thank our sponsor once again, the very accomplished Austin realtor, Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So please give her a shout today if you have any concerns or questions regarding real estate in the Austin area. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. And she actually has a open house happening Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m., 7018 Avignon Drive. That's 7018 Avignon Drive. The list price is $879,000. You can reach out to Laura to find out more about this listing as well as others at laura@andyallenteam.com. Reach out at 512-784-0505. And thank you not only to Laura Baker for sponsoring Football Theory, but also coming out to support us at our On Texas Football 3rd and Longhorn Texas Tour. Met her at the Austin event. She's fantastic, just as charming as her photo would indicate, and she's fantastic. You can trust her. With all of your real estate needs and responsibilities, I can assure you of that. She's got passion for that and Texas football. All right, thank you, Jeff. Great stuff as always, man. Great conversation. Now you got me hyped for this Ohio State game. So I guarantee you next Football Theory is going to be on Ohio State. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but we'll be breaking it down. Thanks to Matthew behind the scenes doing a great job as always. For Jeff, for Matthew, and for accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.